Thank you, Acting Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise to address the Victorian budget of 2019-20. And it would have been more of a pleasure if the state Labor government, the Andrews Labor government, actually delivered what I was hoping they would have delivered for the people of the Sandringham district. Acting Speaker, I did my very best to work collaboratively with the government in regards to providing the infrastructure that my community so desperately needs. The infrastructure that would have set up my community for the benefit of future generations. Infrastructure that would have seen the Sandringham Hospital receive funding for an urgently needed upgrade to their outpatient clinic. Funding that would have seen the Cheltenham Football Netball Club receive some $50,000 for an electronic scoreboard at their Jack Barker Oval. Now, Acting Speaker, let me go into a little bit further detail in relation to the Jack Barker Oval and the great work that the Cheltenham Football Netball Club do. The Cheltenham Football Netball Club is a volunteer organisation, and they have members who contribute to their club, volunteers who are the very fabric of the Sandringham district community. The survival of that club depends on their ability to generate funding for that club. Now, Bayside Council, the local municipality, has dictated that there shouldn't be any permanent signs of sponsors around that Jack Barker Oval, and so that means that their sponsorship dollars are put into jeopardy. Now, working with that club, as I have done over a number of years now, we came up with the solution that an electronic scoreboard would be an opportunity for them to continue the income stream from their sponsors in order to secure the future viability of that particular club. Sadly, that $50,000 commitment, which I wrote to the Treasurer about before the state budget in April this year, and a commitment that I made before last year's state election, was not matched and was not met in this year's state budget. I was also pleased, Acting Speaker, to commit during the last state campaign to $10 million towards a staged development of a multi-hectare regional sporting precinct within the Kingston Green Wedge. And once again, this is something that was not addressed by this state budget. Sporting clubs, soccer clubs, football clubs, hockey clubs, netball clubs, cricket clubs come to me and they say there is a lack of sporting ovals. There are a lack of sporting facilities for us to use. Now, in that particular Kingston Green Wedge, there is an opportunity to expand that particular area and to develop, over a period of time, a regional sporting precinct. In my view, the commitment that we made ahead of that last state election was a visionary commitment, a commitment that would have set up those communities and those sporting clubs with the sporting facilities and infrastructure that they needed to meet the needs of future generations. And sadly, those opposite did not see that opportunity. $7.5 million is what I committed to Mentone Girls Secondary College. Mentone Girls Secondary College is a wonderful secondary college within the Sandringham district. It is one of the only single-sex, girls-only state secondary schools within the state of Victoria and certainly within the southern region of Melbourne. They do a wonderful job in not only inspiring but educating young women to be their best, to achieve their best. And we recognise that on this side of the House during the course of the last state election campaign. That $7.5 million commitment was funding towards the master plan of a future rebuild of that school and funding to implement stage 1 of that master plan. Sadly, Mentone Girls Secondary College has been forgotten in this year's state budget. And once again, I've written letters, not only to the Treasurer, but to the Minister for Education, pleading the case for this school, pleading the case for the needs of this school community, and they have fallen on deaf ears. Well, I say to those people, those important people as part of my community at Mentone Girls Secondary College, that I have not forgotten you, and I will continue to argue the case for the school that you deserve and the facilities that you deserve at your college site. Acting Speaker, I also committed to $9 million for the development and implementation of Stage 1 of a master plan for the rebuild of Sandringham Secondary College. Now, Sandringham Secondary College currently has 2 campuses, Acting Speaker, and what they urgently need is a master plan. An important first step in the process for their college to be rebuilt is the development of that master plan, and I note with appreciation that the government did in fact commit some $500,000 to that master plan work. My point though, however, Acting Speaker, is that the only way that this particular school community will receive the certainty that it needs is not only commitment to a master plan, but to the implementation of Stage 1 and further stages of that particular master plan. We committed to $1.5 million for the installation of new traffic lights and a pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Bluff Road and Tulip Street in Sandringham. Now, Acting Speaker, you may not be familiar with this particular intersection. I wouldn't think that many members in this place would be. But to my community, this is an important intersection. It's an intersection that is precarious at best, and I note in the chamber the presence of the former Shadow Minister for Roads, the member for Croydon, who actually came out during the course of the last state election campaign to that site and met with residents and affected community groups, and where we committed $1.5 million to the redevelopment of that intersection and the establishment of a pedestrian crossing there. That particular intersection is across the road from the Sandringham Hospital. There is some cases where ill people need to cross Bluff Road, a dangerous road, at the best of times to access Sandringham Hospital. It makes sense for there to be a pedestrian crossing there. Tulip Street is also the home of great clubs like the Sandringham Baseball Club, and the Sandringham Soccer Club is within that vicinity. There's childcare facilities in Tulip Street. There is the Sandringham Bowling Club, which I'm proud to be the patron of, the Sandringham Bowling Club. There's the King Club, a swimming pool, there's a gym. So it's a very, very busy road with very many people transiting through that particular intersection. It is desperately needed by my community. Now, Acting Speaker, once again, I wrote to the Minister for Roads, I wrote to the Treasurer, seeking to work constructively with the government for the benefit of the Sandringham District community in implementing this particular piece of infrastructure. And once again, that fell on deaf ears. Acting Speaker, I will go into some other items that were committed to and were not funded, sadly, in this particular budget. One of those things is the addition of protective service officers, PSOs, at Mentone Railway Station. Now, with Mr O'Donoghue in the other place, I was pleased to, ahead of the last state election, announce at Mentone Station that a future Liberal government would establish PSOs at Mentone Station from 10 a.m. until last train, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Acting Speaker, this isn't just a policy idea that we dreamt up. In fact, it was the principals of the 5 secondary schools within that particular Mentone precinct, 5 secondary schools with students numbering around 6,000 who transit through Mentone Station on a daily basis during school terms, that came to us and said, we are concerned about our students' safety, we're concerned about the safety of local residents, of commuters through the Mentone Station precinct, we're concerned about the safety of those who operate shops within that Mentone Station precinct as well. We're concerned that if PSOs and a uniform presence of PSOs is not present at Mentone Station from 10 a.m. until last train, that Mentone Station could in fact become a honeypot of crime, knowing that there are younger people, students, who access that station precinct, which is why we committed to that. And once again, I wrote to the Minister for Police, I wrote to the Treasurer, seeking to work constructively and cooperatively with members of the Andrews Labor government in delivering this important policy outcome for the Sandringham district. And once again, sadly, that fell on deaf ears. Additionally, I sought funding for the Marine Education, Science and Community Centre, MESAC. so that this organisation could commence with the planning of a marine centre purposed with preserving, understanding and building awareness of the Sandringham district's unique and diverse marine biology. We sought $50,000 to assist MISAC in their pursuit. And once again, this fell on deaf ears. Acting Speaker, the Sandringham district that I love, that I have the great privilege of representing in this place, is defined by its tree-lined streets. It's defined by its parks, by its waterways and by its magnificent coastline. And one of the responsibilities that I have and that falls upon my shoulders is to advocate on behalf of organisations like MISAC for the future preservation of our natural environment. It's something that I proudly do and will continue to do, even if the government doesn't believe that this is an area of importance for my area. I believe it is, and I will continue to fight for it. I also sought to work constructively with the Minister for Education and the Treasurer, seeking $1 million for the redevelopment of Blackrock Primary School's presently dilapidated sports oval. I visited the school and the principal, Sam, has shown me around that particular school oval. Acting Speaker, it is not an oval, it is more of a cow paddock. It is unsafe for students and there is an opportunity to bring it up to speed for the sake of that particular school community. Once again, I sought to work constructively with government ministers, and once again, that request fell on deaf ears. Acting Speaker, I sought $3 million for the expansion of the Southern Basketball Association's stadium precinct. This is a basketball association that hosts some 10,000 plus members on a weekly basis, whether it be summer, whether it be winter, right throughout the year. They are the hub for activity for young people. They're promoting healthy lives amongst our young people. There is a wonderful volunteer base of people there who contribute for the betterment of young people, for their health and for their fitness. But frankly, they've run out of room. They've run out of room with the 4 indoor courts they have, and they want to expand. They don't just want to expand, in fact, they need to expand. And this $3 million would be a state contribution on top of a local government, Bayside Council contribution, to expand that offering and to ensure the viability of this particular basketball association for generations to come. Acting Speaker, these were just some of the things that I sought to work constructively with the government on, which is why, in an earnest way, I wrote to the Treasurer seeking his agreement to the funding of these particular items within the state budget. And I'm sad to say that the vast majority of these things that are needed within the Sandringham community simply fell on deaf ears. Acting Speaker, in the time that I have left, I might just refer to some of the analysis of the budget that has been put together by some of my colleagues, because I think it's good analysis, and I would like to refer to, if I may, a media release from the Leader of the Opposition, Mr O'Brien. Mr O'Brien's media release of the 29th of May reads, "Arrogant Labor Treasurer tells concerned Victorians to, quote, get a life." And it reads, "Is there any doubt, if there was any doubt that the Andrews Labor government is arrogant and out of touch, it was put to rest when Tim Pallas declared that anyone concerned about being hit with his new tax when purchasing a family car should, quote, get a life." This is the same Tim Pallas, says Mr O'Brien, who 6 months ago promised no new taxes in his budget. He goes on to say it says so much about Labor that they think any Victorian who doesn't like their new taxes deserves to be mocked and insulted. Now, Acting Speaker, the class warfare that worked so very well for Labor in the federal election has been writ large in this budget. And it has continued, sadly, under this Treasurer, who has mocked and who has ridiculed those hard-working, those earnest people who save their dollars in order to purchase something for their retirement, and his response to them is simply, get a life. Well, Acting Speaker, if there was one word of advice that I would offer this government from the grandeur of this backbench position, it's this. The state Labor government, they need to get a life, because the Victorian people will not put up with this arrogance for much longer.
The member for South Bar.